First things first, how many of you have imagined what would happen if John Carpenter's The Thing took over Marvel's Venom, or at least behaved like Venom? Now, what if we told you there exists such a beast, and that this beast is a Lovecraftian hero? Well, we hope you believe us, because that's the exact story of Savager, a very recent 2025 comic book written by Dirk Blackman and Shannon Denton and illustrated by Kewber Ball. It tells the story of Riley Phillips, a former warrior now fused with a rebel tentacled cosmic parasite after their race invaded Earth in 2032. And even 100 years later, the parasite within Riley and Riley himself are fighting together against the billions of those alien parasites. Consumed by vengeance and tormented by the creature within, he wanders the ruins of Earth in search of retribution, but when he stumbles upon evidence that other human life may still exist, the Avenger must confront the monster inside and reckon with his haunted past. In this video, we're going to explore the very first issue of this amazing book, but before we begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos, and with that out of the way, let's begin. The first words spoken in the comic aren't even Riley's, but the parasites. It tells Riley that it's always hated Pittsburgh because that's where they're at, and Riley retorts, "Don't tell me what I'm thinking." The year is 2136 AD, more than 100 years after the parasitic tentacled aliens attacked. And now, Pittsburgh serves as an example of what the world has become. Without human intervention, flora has found its way back to the cities. Where there were once roads, there are now thick bushes, trees, and vines creeping on the buildings. The green jungle has walked into the concrete jungle and taken it over, and this was happening all across the globe. Riley waded through the bushes, cutting them down with his blade to make way. He could see the cars covered in greenery, as well as tanks, an unusual sight, of course, because we rarely see tanks on city streets, right? But this was the state of affairs when the invasion happened. The government used every tool and weapon it had to fight the monsters and failed miserably. Nevertheless, let's not dwell in the past unless absolutely necessary. Riley was still fighting the flora with all his flair, but wait, he hears something rattling those bushes. What could it be? The parasite within him orders him to turn immediately, and when he does, a giant mutated elephant with multiple tusks presents itself. The beast lifts its trunk and opens its mouth to show the numerous razor-sharp teeth lining its jaws. The gentle giant had become a bloodthirsty carnivore under the influence of the parasites. It ambushes and runs towards Riley, and the next thing you know, Riley gets caught in one of its humongous tusks and rammed into a tree behind him. The force was such that the tusks penetrated the tree as well, and Riley found a huge hole in his chest, but wasn't dead. For the first time in the entire comic, it's now that we see his berserker rage, and for the first time, he gives meaning to his other name as he becomes the Savager. His eyes turn red, he picks up his sidearm and shoots the animal. An explosion in the elephant's brain, and it goes down, but rises again as something else. This time, you can see the tentacles of the parasites coming out of the beast's skull. So, how do you kill this monster? Well, our Savager's parasite gives him a hint and asks him to target the undead elephant's belly, which the Savager does, and finally ends the menace of the violent elephant. What do we see next? Well, Riley pulls out what seems like the parasitic heart and devours it. Brunch has been served. But what about that gape in his chest? Well, that heals on its own, as if sewn by 1,000 threads, but those threads weren't made of fiber like cotton or nylon, but thin tentacles, all coming together to heal him. It was painful, and the parasite offered to turn the pain off, but Riley liked that it hurt, probably because it made him feel human again, even for just a little while. We're sure that by now you've seen how the parasite acts like both John Carpenter's The Thing and Marvel's Venom. It takes over fauna and controls their bodies, which is even similar to how the T. Ocellus from Alien Earth works, but in the case of Riley, it speaks to him and offers to turn off the pain and even sees things that Riley can't, like when it saw the deadly tusker behind Riley. We won't bore you with more obvious analysis, so let's move on with the story. The next panel takes us back in time to the day of the event. The year is 2032, Monday, January the 12th, a day that would become more frightening than all the Friday the 13ths combined. Bright holes opened in the skies across the world. The same incursion occurred everywhere, be it over land or over sea. From these holes came meteors that struck the surface below, but these weren't really meteors, they were alive, and the rock was just a protective shell like an egg. Within hours, there were billions of parasites everywhere. No one stood a chance. Humans were the most populous among the mammals on Earth, and the major cities became the primary targets, but that's not all. They clawed their way into anything alive, killed them, took their bodies, and ate any kind of protein that they could find. An infected mother would eat her newborn, a gentle blue whale would eat the sharks nearby. Once again, nothing was safe. Only a few survived. Those that were in the most protected buildings on Earth, as long as this isn't Gerard Butler's Has Fallen universe, then the White House doesn't really seem that well protected or guarded. Anyways, the few who were inside the White House survived in their bunker while the world outside perished and their families died, and soon even their hope died when the President of the United States committed suicide. It seems like Riley was a part of the United States Secret Service, and it wasn't long after POTUS killed himself that the parasite-infested humans and animals found the bunker and attacked with their full force. Despite putting up an amazing fight, the humans lost, and in the process, Riley was infected with one of the creatures. In that moment, Riley felt an incredible amount of pain and almost pulled the pin of a grenade to end it once and for all, but he didn't. And here he was, 104 years later, still alive, still fighting, but not alone. This time, he had an ally that evened the odds. Over the next few panels, we see the extent to which things had exacerbated on Earth. The parasites had consumed or taken over most of the living, and now they resorted to exhuming the dead and eating their flesh as the last source of protein. One such group was munching on bones in a graveyard, 3 humans and a dog. One of them warns the other about eating it all because someone that he only refers to as he needs his cut. The other one doesn't want to stop because he was very far away and these guys were here. There was no way for the mysterious him to know what they were eating and how much, but the first one says he'll know. He always knows. Don't worry, we'll meet this mysterious overlord of the infected in just a bit. Soon they hear Riley inside a building. He had been arranging his weapons, cleaning some, replenishing others, but as soon as he got out of the building, the 4 ambushed our Savager, and once again he makes quick work of the threat. He takes down the dog with a net that slashes it, then he uses his sword to take down 2 of the undead humans, but lets the 3rd go. Furthermore, it seems like these parasites were aware of who Riley was and what he did. You see, he was the abomination, at least the parasite within him was. Riley used what they call enhanced interrogation techniques and finds out that the parasites fed someone named Krath, the he from earlier. We also learn that Riley and the parasite within him have an arrangement, one according to which he would kill them all, including the one living inside. Now, we have reached the 3rd act of the first issue. It takes us to a place far away from Pittsburgh and much later than the events we just saw unfolding. We open at what appears to be the monster's base. Strange, twisted beings nest here like so many colorful organisms, each more hideous and mutated than the last. The one that Riley let go arrives, speaks to a Praetorian of sorts, a female. She was well-built, tall, and looked like a warrior, a king's general. He tells her that he had information for Krath, but she warns him that if his information is good, he would eat, and if not, well, she doesn't finish that sentence, but we know that the informant didn't even want to know the end of it. Now, we meet Krath, the Ascendant. Not Lord, not King, but Ascendant. One who has ascended from being a lowlife to something higher and more powerful. Krath was this giant amalgamation of several bodies protruding from various parts. He was in the middle of his lunch when this scrawny informant came to him with knowledge about the Savager, and as soon as Krath hears it, he orders his general to gather the hunt and bring him the abomination, that is, Riley, aka the Savager. And the hunt begins. Parasites in human bodies riding demonic bears, bulls, and horses, with tigers and lions and wolves serving as hunting dogs and scouts. Meanwhile, Riley comes across the strangest sight he's seen in over 100 years. The sight of a woman. But not just any woman, this one was a human. But how could that be possible? No one managed to survive the parasites, not even the birds that flew in the sky. How did this woman survive? Are there more like her? Is there a community? What will the parasite within Riley do? Will it try to take her over? Well, all of these questions must be answered, and they'll be answered in the 2nd issue. Unfortunately, that's all we got for you today, but if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. If this video is popular enough, we will definitely be following up with this amazing new comic series.